Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your watch party services. How are you all? I hope you're all doing very, very well. Now finally, the fog is rolling in. After me long talking about doing this, we're finally going to get around to doing it. And hopefully it won't get blocked. But who knows, it's in the lap of the YouTube gods. We shall see. The Fog, made in 1979, released in February 1980, John Carpenter's ghostly maritime saga of centennial retribution. Yes, you know it, you love it. Not going to waste too much preamble when I get into the movie. Of course, you guys will know that John Carpenter and his then partner, Deborah Hill, his co-producer, Deborah Hill, did Halloween, did The Fog, did Escape from New York, probably some other things too. They were together for a while, and I think after he'd done Assault on Precinct 13, which had phenomenal success in the UK after the London Film Festival, and they were promoting Halloween, they went back to the UK to really push the junket out and promote Halloween. And they took a bit of time out from that, and they went to Stonehenge. And as they were there at Stonehenge, Carpenter saw this amorphous blob on the horizon. Yeah, it was a fog sitting there, bubbling away on the horizon. And he said to Deborah, imagine if something evil was in that. And there was born the germ of the idea for The Fog. It would take another couple of years for them to actually come up with the script for it. And it also has its genesis in the films The Trollenberg Terror, UK title, aka The Crawling Eye, because there's lots of foggy elements in that, as well as eyeballs with tentacles, but we won't go into all that side of things. And the Great Hammer pseudo-Quatermass movie, X the Unknown, which is absolutely phenomenal. And again, it's not a fog, but you're up in like the misty moorlands, and you've got this amorphous, gelatinous blob which comes up from under the ground and causes bedlam. And it's a genuinely wonderful movie, which I will at some point give it the full kilted treatment. But for now, they're the ideas that were working in Carpenter's mind when he came up with The Fog. A follow-on from the phenomenal success of Halloween. How are you going to top that? With difficulty. But we'll go into all of this. In the meantime, what I think of, cameo appearance from Captain Blake there himself. Got his old trusty cutlass there. And in case things get a bit dicey, I've got me old hook. Whoa, yeah, oh, that's grim, isn't it? Terrible. I did have my own homemade version of the bit of driftwood where it's got Dane, as in Elizabeth Dane, the ghostly clipper ship which has been sunk in the water off by Spivey Point, and all the mariners come up from that to seek their revenge. And the piece of driftwood with Dane on one side of it, and then it's suddenly, in a supernatural moment which we're going to enjoy later, it says 6 must die. And I made that, and of course the spooks of Kilt Mansion have whisked it off into the ether. So who knows? Right, anyway, for reference purposes, I'm using the UK 4K release of The Fog from Studio Canal. I've got it paused, just at the beginning of the Avco Embassy logo at the start. I'm missing out the Studio Canal logo for two reasons. One, it's bound to incur copyright, and two, I can't fucking stand it. I did a video actually about the Studio Canal logos, and I hate them with a vengeance. And they keep on, they're repetitive. You put the disc in, it plays it. You choose anything from the menu screen, it'll play that as well. And then you go into the film, it'll play that before the film. It's overkill. So, folks, without further ado, let's penetrate the fog. So I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then we press play. So let's rehearse this. 3, 2, 1, play. 3, 2, 1, play. Right? Now for real. 3, 2, 1, play. Avco Embassy. And this was part of a 2-picture deal that John Carpenter forged with Avco Embassy. This film and Escape from New York. It's all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream. A quote from Edgar Allan Poe there. Bit strange that, because the film is very Lovecraftian rather than Poean. And that came from Deborah Hill. Deborah Hill was sadly now deceased, was a massively well-versed fan in horror literature, horror movies. Like Carpenter, knew her stuff inside out. Here's old Mr. Machen, John Houseman. The great John Houseman. The opening ghostly yarn which sets the tone for the rest of the movie, and also sets the whole thing about the Elizabeth Dane and why they were sunk. Well, we'll find out from Father Malone why they were sunk and what really happened to their gold, but this is just a tale of ghostly, nefarious daring-do in the briny. That's actually a soundstage, and it's all blacked out. They're sitting on sandbags and things, but you do get the impression that you're actually on a beach somewhere. All the kids there are the kids of the cast and crew, apart from young Ty Mitchell there, who's Andy, who plays Adrienne Barbeau's son in this. Houseman was on set for just one day, and they were all in awe and fear of his phenomenal presence, and very intimidated by him. But apparently he screwed his lines up so many times, and he would effing blind, and he was swearing like a trooper, and it just brought him down to their level, and they all got on great. And then waved goodbye to John Houseman. For those who are interested, there is a bottle of lager down there, and I'm supping tea from my fabulous KAB Antonio Bay radio mug. Look at that, they're all riveted, aren't they? Dean Cundy, the cinematographer, master of the Panaglide. Awesome stuff. That gliding, floating, ethereal style of cinematography, which he brought to so much great use in Halloween, in this, Escape from New York, The Thing. Then went on, of course, to Jurassic Park and many other movies, won an Academy Award as well. I think he even ended up directing a movie himself. But it lends so much dreamy ambience. It's visual poetry. Carpenter's films are, if nothing else, they are visual masterclasses. Look at this, and you've got, this will cut now. Carpenter does this a lot in his movies. There'll be a tracking or gliding shot. There'll be a subliminal, invisible cut in the darkness, and then you're going to arrive in an entirely new location. He's done it loads of times. Very cleverly done. Look at that. That view there reminds me so much of the view, similar view in Joe Dante's The Howling, where they discover the Eddie Quist, who's the serial killing werewolf in the big city, has actually been to the rural enclave, the sort of retreat for a bunch of other werewolves, and his drawing, his sketch is of that exact same landscape there, seascape. Here's John Carpenter's cameo appearance as a sort of the church, I don't know, what would you call him, church janitor, and he's playing a character called Bennett Tramer. Bennett Tramer, that's Ben Tramer from Halloween, and especially Halloween 2. He's the guy that they think in Halloween 2 is Michael Myers. He's wearing the same boiler suit, got the same mask on, but it's got a bleach blonde hairdo on it, and he gets hit by a police car and slammed into a van, and Bennett Tramer ends up in a big fiery inferno. Here's Carpenter trying to act against an award-winning actor of huge stature as Hal Holbrook. Father, can I get paid? Now remember this. That's Father Malone. He's a drunkard. He's not going to pay Bennett right now. Just come in a bit later tomorrow. Yeah, and is that all right? Does that suit you? It's the film is about the sins of the fathers, as we're going to learn very shortly, and so he's foregoing payment of someone when his ancestors did pretty much the same thing. They reneged on a deal. Great shock scare there. The radio comes on as well. Big slab of masonry comes down. Luckily, it didn't hit the bottle. Christ. There'd have been hell to pay if it'd done that with me. But what's behind the wall? Poe talks about paranoia a lot. Ghostly stuff, paranoia, bit of persecution. It's Lovecraft that really brings back the sins of the fathers and things that happened in the past which are going to have a massive influence on the things of, well, the current times in which he's writing. And the fog is very much more akin to Lovecraft than Poe. But that quote, "Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream," is actually very apt, because you've just had the story of John Houseman as old Mr. Macken, telling about the clipper ship that was sunk out in the water by Spivey Point, and so there's a story there. That story will be re-evoked again, and you'll have stories and stories within this. There's Stevie Wayne, that husky voice of hers, Adrienne Barbeau. Now, I said that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were together. They were an item when they came up with the idea for the fog. But at the time of making this, they'd split up, and John Carpenter was now with Adrienne Barbeau. In fact, they were married. And they tried to keep things professional for a day or two whilst on set. They had separate motel rooms or hotel rooms, but it lasted about a day or two, and then pretty much John Carpenter said to it, "This ain't working. Let's get back to normal." All hugs and cuddles and all that, and it didn't interfere. As Carpenter says, this was a very easy shoot. Before you jump on me, we know it didn't turn out to be that way, but when they actually shot the film, it was like making Halloween, which was just plain sailing, very smooth. The actors all got along well, everything worked out. But it's only when they came back to edit the movie, John Carpenter and Adrienne Barbeau, after the filming wrapped, went for a belated honeymoon. I think they went to Jamaica, somewhere in the Caribbean anyway. And when they came back, they sat down to watch the finished cut and discovered, to their horror, that it didn't work at all. And so began months of nightmarish re-editing, rescoring, and doing insert shots and filming extra scenes and juggling the movie around, to the point where Carpenter said, "We basically made the film once, it didn't work, and basically remade it again." So he looks back on this with he thinks the finished product is terrific, which I'm sure we all do. It's a wonderful movie, but he knows the hell that he went through, and it was a major test of his endurance and his own self-confidence. He just thought, "I can't make movies. I'm not a director. I've ruined this." This guy here is John Strobel. You'd see him again in Escape from New York. He's the guy that puts the bombs into Snake Plissken's neck. This sort of lengthy montage here is showing, on the night before the fog, that it's the night before the centenary of Antonio Bay, which is built on a travesty, the murder of Captain Blake and his leprous companions who just wanted to start their own colony. But they were deliberately sunk by the people who wanted to use his gold to build their town of Antonio Bay and then keep the whole murderous plot a secret. So this is the night before the actual centenary, but things are already beginning to permeate the modern world. The ghostly presence is coming in there. And I like this. Carpenter gets away with this because it doesn't need any explanation. This is a film where it's a ghost story. It's the closest that he ever came to telling a proper old school bona fide ghost story. And as many critics, and including myself, have taken umbrage with, when we see the ghosts, they're not ghosts, they're basically zombies. They're very corporeal, they're visceral, they're physical entities that can do physical damage to their victims. That's not exactly what a ghost is, but as Carpenter quite rightly says, he said, it's a supernatural yarn. That one man's ghost, another man's zombie. What does it really matter? And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter at all. It's just wonderful stuff. Tommy Lee Wallace, film editor. Tommy Lee Wallace, who was a mover and shaker on so many of Carpenter's movies in the early days. And in fact, all the ghostly zombie, leprous mariner's hands that come crashing through windows or poking through doors, that's all Tommy Lee Wallace. That's all him doing it. He would have a hand, hey, no pun intended, in not only smashing the glass and grabbing people's hair. That's his wife. That's Nancy Loomis. He's married to Nancy Loomis. He'd be painting the sets as well. He'd turn his hand to everything. So written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. And there's that voice of Stevie Wayne, who becomes the sentinel, the watcher, the guardian of Antonio Bay. She warns everyone when the fog's coming in. She fights a gallant last stand herself. Here we go, folks. It's going to be Tom Atkins. Here he is. Look at him. The most unlikely of Lotharios, isn't he? But you got to love him. An 80s stalwart. And there's Jamie Lee Curtis. In the days when hitchhiking was still a thing. God, don't do that now, folks. And Jamie Lee Curtis plays a character called Elizabeth Stolley. Or is it Stolley or Solly? And that's the name of an ex-girlfriend of John Carpenter's. All his character names come from either people involved in movies or friends of family or people he knew at high school. He said one of the worst things about writing is trying to come up with character names or place names. So they're always going to be someone that he knows, a place that he knows. And it becomes kind of an in-joke as well. Are you weird? Yeah. Yes, I am. Hey. I'll drink to that. And of course, Tom Atkins is playing a guy called Nick Castle. Nick Castle is the guy that played Michael Myers, The Shape, in the original Halloween 1978. As you can probably tell, that vehicle, that clapped out old truck, it's not actually moving anywhere. It's on a sound stage and they're just moving stuff with lights around the vehicle to try and make it look like it's travelling somewhere. So the ghostly stuff that's happened in the town is also happening on the roads in its environs as well. And I like the way that throughout the rest of the movie, in this van, this little truck, the windows, the glass doesn't get replaced. I mean, it only happens over 2 days, this film, but in a lot of movies, they'd have kind of glossed over that. You'd either be in a different vehicle or, hold on a second, here she is. Oh my God. Do forgive me, folks, but this is one of my first ever screen crushes. She is phenomenal. John Carpenter, you lucky, lucky bastard. Although their marriage didn't last, I don't think it even lasted 10 years. There's Charles Cyphers, another stalwart in the John Carpenter ensemble family. He plays Dan the Weatherman, but his character's name is Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon co-wrote Dark Star with and starred in Dark Star from John Carpenter. And then went on to do Life Force, worked on Alien. and wrote Dead and Buried, which has a lot of similarities to this film, Dead and Buried. He's great though. And of course he's just chatting that up. But these two will never meet. They are just voices over the airwaves. And this is a beautiful bit of sort of poetic symmetry as well. Oh. And of course she plays a Howard Hawksian strong woman. A single mother who's moved out there with their son, a young son, and took over KAB, Antonio Bay radio station, housed in that phenomenal lighthouse. Here's the men of the seagrass who have just gone out for a night out on the sea to get pissed as farts away from their wives. And that's George Buckflower in the foreground. He's been in a load of John Carpenter movies. He's got that fantastic grizzled old voice. My name's George Buckflower. My name's Buck and I'm raring to fuck. Slight visual effect fuck up here. As you can see, it, the fog is stretching beyond the actual porthole there. We'll talk about how the fog effects were done, and it's really ingenious as well. But that's great. She's crazy. There's no fog bank out there. Hey, there's a fog bank out there. Carpenter's ominous music as well. Come, looky here, look at this. Now, what the hell glows in the fog? Oh dear. It's a miniature boat, by the way, folks, on the sea. And this is I think this is actually a real boat that they're on now. The interiors are a real boat. I think. Could be wrong there. But that's a miniature. I mean, it's a strange little fishing vessel that. It looks more like a tugboat. These poor guys. And the fog gets into the engine. Shuts off all the power. I like the sonar blip as well. Look at this. Now it's a shame we don't see this more often. That is a real life old style clipper, which I think they found in San Diego Bay, San Diego Harbour, and it was moored up. But when it passes them, it's actually them on a boat passing the immobile old clipper ship. This is a scene which they have to beef up. Carpenter, when they realised the film didn't work, that it wasn't scary, it didn't hang together, went back in and filmed lots of extra violence. Because even though he wanted to tell an old school, less is more ghost story, it didn't work with modern audiences. So they had to beef it up. It still isn't gory, but it is violent though. Who are they? Who is that? Oh! 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 Dear God. See, it's not gory, but it is brutal. Oh, there's that hook. Oh. And it stays on his eyes for a bit, and you'll see the pin light go out from one eye. There you go. Speaking of eyes. Uh-oh. Jeepers creepers, where'd you get them peepers? Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those eyes? Because I want them on the end of my little spiky thing. Super. Look at all the black there. It's brilliant, isn't it? Oh. Again, you don't see it, but you don't need to. The bloody sound effect is more than enough. It's worth mentioning the original Studio Canal release of The Fog, before it went on to a 4K restoration and the UHD disc, was unbelievably bad. It was one of the worst transfers I'd ever seen because you couldn't see a damn thing. Black was just, the whole screen was just black, wretched, awful, black crush everywhere. But this is fantastic. UHD looks phenomenal. Adrienne Barbeau does not smoke, had never smoked before, and but to keep in with the Howard Hawksian and strong woman approach, Carpenter said no, just smoke. So she maintains that she didn't inhale once throughout the making of the movie. That's the real scene. That is the real scene. It's shot during the day, and then with night filters and lighting techniques, it looks like the glassy ocean beneath the full moon. The interiors of the lighthouse. We're going to talk a lot more about lighthouses. I love lighthouses. And the real lighthouse of Port Reys is shown extensively from the exterior, but the interior of it is just a soundstage. But you're utterly convinced it's the same place. Look at that. What the hell was that? There is a terrifically OTT original trailer for this movie where Mr. Voiceover Guy just goes like, John Carpenter's The Fog. What in the living hell is out there? What in the living hell is out there? Look at that view. Oh, Tom Atkins, you dirty old ticket, you. You just picked her up, and then you picked her up. She's not the greatest of characters. In fact, Nor's Nick Castle. You know, these two, they're necessary. They propel the story, but they're not. There's not a great deal of dimensionality to them. I mean, you've got, this is what she does, her photography and all this, and he's interested. Not really interested. We know what he's interested in. So this is still the night before The Fog, and you've had 3 murders, and all hell's been let loose all over the town. He's had his truck windows smashed out by a supernatural force. He's just had unprotected sex with a complete stranger. Pre-AIDS, folks, pre-AIDS. And that in the background there, that's not the reflection of the real sea. That's just lighting with movement going across it in shadows to give the effect. I mean, there's no way on earth you're going to get up and answer that door. Not without a shotgun. And she should know better. After combating Michael Myers on another infamous night. Look, that's the hook. That's the hook I just showed you. So he's seen the figure there at that stage. I didn't shout, fuck off. So again, this kind of leads you to think that, although you shouldn't think too much about it, the supernatural elements of this really aren't working in cahoots with, you know, the vengeful mariners. Like, because the clock smashing was a supernatural thing, which sort of led to him surviving, getting his head scythed in by a big vicious hook spike thing. So if the supernatural elements were working totally in cahoots with the ghosts, it wouldn't have done that. Here's little Ty Mitchell as Andy Wayne, Stevie Wayne's son. And these are the beaches of Inverness and Port Reys, Northern California, where regular viewers know this is exactly where I want to end my days. In this environment, this area. Look at it. It looks like Devon and Cornwall. It looks like the west coast of Scotland. Looks like North Wales. It's absolutely beautiful. Ooh, this is the driftwood coming in now. Whoa. If you look at all the seaweed covering them rocks there, Rob Bottin does the effects. Here's the driftwood. Rob Bottin does the effects for it, and he created Worm Face, one of the only close-ups we get of the actual ghosts themselves. Worm Face looks just like one of them seaweed encrusted rocks. First it was a gold coin, and it turned this really neat piece of wood. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. That. It's a real beach house there. When they filmed Village of the Damned in the same area, some of the crew lived in these houses. I love the way that Dean Cundy's elegant, prosaic camera work just allows the clouds to pass over the sun, so you get shadows, big sort of celestial shadows creeping over the landscape. All these fake pictures there of Stevie Wayne with obviously the father of Andy running up the planks there. I think that is Deborah Hill's previous boyfriend. So again, everyone's all connected. The duvet cover and the lamp and a lot of the furnishings are all from Deborah Hill's apartment. Oh, calm down, Kilt-Man, calm down. Oh, Mr. Macon. See, I called him Machin and Mackin before, and it's actually Mr. Macon. Third time lucky, Kilt-Man, come on. Maybe this time I can get the whole ship. She is gorgeous. Dane. The Elizabeth Dane. Here's Bodega Bay. This is where Hitchcock filmed The Birds. And appropriately enough, there's a lot of birds in the shot. Very overcast day. I mean, it doesn't look like what people expect California to look like. It's further up north. The climate's different. Port Reyes and this area of Inverness are the second foggiest part of the United States. The most foggiest part being Nantucket. But this is the second foggiest. And they didn't know that when they were filming it. That wasn't the drawing point. They spent a while trying to find locations and lighthouses that would be appropriate. And they hit upon Port Reyes, the Port Reyes lighthouse there, which we're going to see properly shortly. And didn't really realise that it's also the second foggiest place in the United States. How apt. So they're going to go out and see what's happened to the seagrass, the guys who've gone missing. There's Jamie Lee Curtis's mum, Janet Leigh, who of course was Marion Crane in Psycho for Hitchcock, who did The Birds, filmed in Bodega Bay. And there's Nancy Loomis again from Halloween, from Assault on Precinct 13, married to Tommy Lee Wallace, who I do believe that the guy we just passed there is Tommy Lee Wallace. He was doing the painting on the side of that gate post or whatever it is. You might see him again now. Tommy Lee Wallace. So Janet Leigh is playing, she's some sort of town dignitary, like a big PR sort of spokeswoman for the big celebrations on Antonio Bay's 100th anniversary, its centenary of its inauguration. Here we go, Adrienne Barbeau, Stevie Wayne driving a rather natty little Jeep. Look at this landscape, look at this. That road there, that's the real road that leads to the real lighthouse. And she's really driving in a real Jeep. Look at that area. The Point Reyes lighthouse still works. It's not manned. Like most lighthouses now, they're not manned. They don't need to be. It's all run digitally from afar. They're maintained. They're not even the old lights anymore, you know, the big lamps. And the foghorns are done electronically now as well. Whereas they used to experiment with using cannon shells and high-pitched noises and whistles and flugelhorns. In the old days, they believed that sound travelled the same way that light does. So they tried to employ the same sort of techniques. This would be the 1870s when they were experimenting with foghorns around Trinity House and Dover and Portsmouth in the UK, and also all around Canada and the US. But most developments were made in the UK, and they discovered that no, sound does not travel the same way that light does. So they had to come up with something different. So flugelhorns and things, and lots of pipes became very, very sort of orchestral, very gothic in their sound sort of systems. Mrs. Williams, I like her as well. In fact, Janet Leigh looks gorgeous as well, doesn't she, in this? Janet Leigh, of course, was married to Tony Curtis, and that's how you got Jamie Lee Curtis. So it's her husband who was out on the seagrass, the other two poor butchered guys. But look at this area. Lush green meadowlands. It's gorgeous. Carpenter loved this area so much that he bought a house up there. He did not enjoy filming on these particular days when they're at sea. He was ferociously seasick. Look at that boat bobbing up and down. He took loads of anti-seasickness tablets and didn't work. Him and I think the AD were like blowing their lunch all over the decks. Something you can't really combat it if you've got seasickness, and you could be the strongest person ever, the best constitution. You could maybe fly. You don't have vertigo at all, but you can suffer really badly with seasickness. It's just emotion. That church is an old church down in Southern California. So a vastly different location. Hal Holbrook they couldn't afford to move Hal Holbrook to any other location other than this. But you wouldn't know that, you don't know it's somewhere else. The location hopping in this film works perfectly well. You're not aware of it. One of the greatest jump shock scenes coming up. And it's a complete red herring as well. It's just Carpenter having a bit of fun. But it works. Not a good sign. Nancy Loomis has a really sarcastic sort of speech pattern. But anyway, I find it quite sexy as well. The lighting in there is exquisite, isn't it? Nice church. Look at them stained glass windows. Ooh, they won't last too long. Carpenter actually put all those in because they knew they were going to break them, so they took the old windows out and put in new stained glass windows, which they could smash through, and then replace them again. Look behind you. Hey. You fucking creepy bastard. Sitting in the shadows like that. What are you doing? Having a fumble in your cassock? So he's going to read the diary now. This is his forefathers. His forefather, who was also a priest. And he's now worked out that the whole town is built on a lie. That its prosperity was gained via stolen gold taken from the old clipper ship, the Elizabeth Dane, which had been lured onto the rocks during a hellish fog, which rolled in to help their horrible purpose. And they drowned all the men, who were Captain Blake and his leprous companions, who just wanted to live in peace on their own little island community. Now this is a set This is meant to be the below decks. Oh no, this is the bridge of the seagrass. It's actually built on a gimbal, which should move it slightly from side to side to give the impression it's rolling on the water. And you're not getting much of an impression of that, but you do when they go below decks. Carpenter actually said that, you know, even though it was on a set and, you know, he should have been free from seasickness, when he put it on the gimbal, he was just as sick. So this is the legend. See, look, the lighting and the blacks and the shadows are just wonderful. You've got plenty of colour there, but the contrast, the juxtaposition, it's just that he's a floating head and a dog collar in amidst all that shadowy gloom. And a great cut there as well, from one patch of gloom to another. Doesn't the seagrass seem to be much, much bigger than it actually was when he saw it? Now it is slightly rolling here, yeah, the gimbal. See, they're doing like loads of little fake scares, but you're going to get some good scares, of course. Drank a lot of beer last night, every night. Oh. Salt water. I'm just gonna indulge in a beer myself. There we go. Cheers, y'all. Cheers, Captain Blake. I love their expressions. Because they're thinking, well, you know, they're probably horrified by what they're hearing, but they're also like, well, so what? So what? We've got a big party tonight. Got stuff to do. See, look, she's blaming herself now. Bad things just seem to happen to me. A hark back to Laurie Strode. See the creeping of the shadows and him wiggling the torch around. That's all to give the impression that this boat's actually rocking in the sea. As you can see, it's only slightly moving on that gimbal. But you saw the water before and it was choppy as hell. So you get another story within a story here. Spivey Point. It seems like a real place, doesn't it? A real patch of a Spivey Point. There's nothing more mysterious than the sea. Things happen at sea. Great this. Showing us what's happening there with the closet. What's going on? So we know something's going to happen. I live on the coast and there's loads of like old shanty sort of tales from around here. Oh, the false scare. And then jeez, hello. Have you seen my eyeballs? See, and Carpenter's ominous music. It's a wonderful score. This wonderful. The main theme plays slightly in the Halloween main theme tradition, with its rhythm, its speed. But most of the score is languorous, slow, and very, very menacing and ominous. Look at this. Just how beautiful it's like. Very, very windy as well. Very windy. Which is strange because it was the foggiest place, second foggiest place in America. Wind and fog, you don't get the two together, because if it's windy, you won't get any fog. And it's very ferociously windy there. And yet also very foggy. Go figure. Supernatural. That's a crazy dinky little Jeep, that, isn't it? Right, here we go. We're going to see Port Reyes Lighthouse, KAB radio 1340. That's the real location, folks. There's no visual effects, nothing like that. She's going to have to walk down what I think, I probably got the figure wrong, I think it's 164 steps. It's either that or it's 640 steps. I don't know. Yeah, look at that sea. How could you ever tire of looking at that? And it's not high up. It's built out on the cliff edge, like the South Stack Lighthouse, which is literally, as a crow flies from me, it's about 75 miles away from me. Right? No, not even that. 65 miles away from me in North Wales and Anglesey. Very similar to this lighthouse. Not a very tall structure. It's a squat little lighthouse. Doesn't need to be tall. It's on a promontory. It's on a point. Point Reyes. There would be the lighthouse keeper's old buildings there. They'd have lived in them. You don't live in the lighthouse. Although you can these days. You can live in lighthouses. I've said this before. Me and Mrs. Kilt-Man were going to move into a lighthouse many years ago. And we didn't do it. I don't know why. Maybe I showed her this film and that put her off. So that's a set, obviously. And that wrought iron spiral staircase is from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The James Mason Kirk Douglas version. There's all their radio jingles. And to avoid any copyright issues, they decided it was going to be a jazz radio station, so they could just literally just needle drop onto like any bit of random jazz, and nothing would happen. You wouldn't get any infringements. Although I'm going on about like Dean Cundey's fabulous cinematography, it's actually quite understated in this film. The setups, again with Carpenter's direction, are very simple, but they're very elaborate at the same time, because look at this now. Nancy Lewis in the background, Janet Leigh in the sort of sheltered mid-ground, and Hal Holbrook barely even seen right in the foreground. Look at the clever setup of that shot. The framing is magnificent. Antonio Bayes a curse on it. I mean, after what he's just told you, what do you think he's going to do? He's not going to be singing and dancing, is he, at the centenary celebrations? It's wonderfully well done. So I say a lot of the shots, you'll have someone, there's even the, I forget the term for it, you've got people in the background who are in total focus at the same time as people in the foreground who are in total focus as well. It's not an easy, nowadays, digitally, it's very easy to do. But the way back in 79, when they filmed this, you had to find ways of doing it. Ooh. Ghostly water. This is great. And the crazy, you get the voice of Captain Blake. An albatross around my neck. My God, it was a plumstone. So when the water hits the cassette player, that's when... What? A millstone, not a plumstone. The hell am I talking about? A plumstone wouldn't do much. 6 must die. Yeah. Okay, now the thing about that is, and I always do admonish this film for it, although I always get round it, always doesn't bother me that much, but I think it's an error to have said, 6 must die, because we know right now that 3 have been killed already, so there's only going to be 3 more deaths, and you've introduced a whole slew of characters, so it's not going to be a big bloodbath. You know that already. And pretty soon you're going to get 2 more deaths, and then you're going to have the lengthy finale where you know that only 1 more has to die. So in a way, I kind of like it. That again harks back more to Poe than Lovecraft by issuing that sort of ultimatum: 6 must die. And again, the old hoary maritime legends of yore, that sort of thing. It fits in with that. But in a modern day sort of horror film body count picture, I know this is not meant to be a body count picture, but look at that great shot there. It's just setting the camera up there, looking directly at the 2 angles, and yet it looks phenomenal. Oh God, that phone's horrible, isn't it? Not Adrienne's phone. That's luscious, passionate red. But that snot green, what's that about? Oh God. Looks like he sneezed all over it. Yeah. I mean, how would you explain that? What you've just seen there? This piece of wood began speaking and then burst into flames and told you that 6 must die. There's also, speaking about locations, where that is there, in North Wales, you have a very quaint, it was built in the 18th or is it 19th century as a retreat, and it's called Port Miriam, and it's where he filmed Patrick McGoohan in The Prisoner. It's called The Village, and you can go there. It's a great big tourist attraction. Now, the village itself is very quaint, kind of small. If you've seen The Prisoner, you'll know exactly what I mean. But if you wander down onto the beach, where you'd often see the big Chinese spy balloon chasing Patrick McGoohan across the beach, if you go down there, it looks just like the view looking at that house and across the bay to the other lovely, lush, green island. It's like almost like an archipelago, and that's what you've got in Port Miriam. And the strange thing about that is that I've only ever been able to stand on one side of that particular bay and look out at an island in the middle and then lush green pastures further beyond. It's always been idyllic. The water blue, azure blue, the clouds not even there. Beautiful spotless blue sky, blazing sunshine. Apart from you got the clouds in this, but it's very similar to that outlook there. And I've never been on the other side, so it always seems like it's just an image. It's not real. Here's Darwin Joston, who was Napoleon Wilson in Assault on Precinct 13. And that dead body there is not the guy that you saw getting his eyes gouged out. That's actually John Strobel, the guy at the start of the film. He's the janitor in the supermarket, and everything's going crazy. He's the guy that puts the bombs in St. Pliskin's neck. Well, he plays the corpse here. Do you 2 guys share the same wardrobe? See, in America they call it plaid shirt. It's actually tartan. It's tartan. Plaid my ass. And again, in line with all the joke names that Carpenter comes up with, Darwin Joston's pathologist there, he's called Dr. Fibes. I don't think He doesn't get name dropped at all, but he is Dr. Phibes in this. And John Strobel, who you can see is about to be reanimated as a corpse here in Escape from New York. He plays a guy called Cronenberg, as in David Cronenberg. He just got cold in here. See again, this is great because we can see what's happening. And then the flicks, you're like, no, behind you, no. Yeah, he was in the boat, he's below decks. Dan Baxter died in the ocean. So he's picking up a scalpel. Ooh. Does this really well. It's so creepy, isn't it? He's been down for longer. Oh, you want to see his face, don't you? With them big hacked out orbital orifices. I do think the reactions here are a little bit understated. Like, how the fuck did he get off there? Three are gone. Again, it's a rather unconnected sort of just a spooky moment. In the overall narrative arc, it doesn't make foghorns. It doesn't make such a great deal of sense. Why is he going to tell them? Why is he warning anybody? Look at it. So what you'll find there, that's genuine fog. That's the genuine fog moving in. But the effects of the fog are really, really cool. It's old school. Again, they remade this movie, of course. We're not even going to talk about... There's that view, which is very similar to the one in The Howling. And it's just gorgeous, isn't it? It's almost like a ghostly old... just a one horse, one road town. That's Deborah Hill sitting up the top there. You'll see it again later on. Deborah Hill, the producer and co-writer. Here's the mayor. Of course, Janet Leigh's gonna find out now that her husband. This is a static shot and a lengthy one as well. And the camera will then just slightly move backwards, panning with Tom Atkins as he goes to meet Jamie Lee again at the bar. Apparently Janet Leigh had to burst into tears about 20 times due to technical issues. They kept having to cut and start again. It's hard to realise what the technical issues might have been. It's just a static shot. What could possibly have gone wrong 20 times, And Carpenter says that she nailed it every time and it was just brilliant. She is great. Janet Leigh is wonderful in this. The poise and dignity that she's got. You believe it as well. You buy into it. That she's just been given the worst news, but she's still going to carry on. Because what else can she possibly do? So again, there's been no cutaway. Unless the technical elements here, Dean Cundy tripped over backwards every time. So you have to start again. Could be that. There you are. I think I've solved that. Stevie Wayne, the sexy voice on the airwaves. See, it's an odd sequence now with these two again. I wish there was a bit more dialogue that they had, a bit more fleshing out. See that in the lower portion of the screen? That's the light. The light from the lighthouse doesn't come from the lighthouse itself. It's actually a different light run and operated in a separate location. And that's how it really does work in that particular lighthouse. Right, here we go. Here's the fog coming in. And after they've done that, that's what they call miniature fog. They take a plate of the actual landscape itself, and then from a fixed camera, and then what they'll do is they'll make a miniature and they'll map out the exact landscape, and you see it in houses and other landscapes and sort of hills and things and trees. They'll do it later on as well, and they'll cover these shapes with black velvet and then let the fog on the miniature set just bleed around it. So when they superimpose it, make a composite shot of it, then when you get it combined, you'll see the fog is going around the real landscape. Again, it's old school, but there's no school like the old school, and those effects still work. Here's Dan the weatherman. I forecast getting the horn tonight. Look at that. And the fog was caused by dry ice in some cases, fog machines and foggers in other cases. And very often the wind would blow against it and drive it away. So you'll see some shots which are actually done in reverse. So when the fog is actually seemingly coming towards us or towards a vehicle, it's actually going away. So they have to do it in reverse, so it looks like the vehicle is got. Let me get this right. I knew I'd come unstuck on this at some point. It's better when it comes on. I'll tell you then. Oh god, that guy leaving there. Apparently he had more scenes to begin with, and then in the editing reshuffle and everything, he lost a fair bit. Got to remember the film was extensively redone. All the kills were beefed up. Scenes were sort of moved into different order. Some bits were dropped. A lot was added, and the score was completely changed. As Carpenter said, Halloween didn't work at all until he put the music in. But now, he knows the power of music. So the score for The Fog initially, in the first edit, just didn't do it justice. A special weather bulletin. She's crazy. There's no fog bank out there. Hey, there's a fog bank out there. Oh, we've got all the loose glass away from the windows. By the way, folks, there was a nice little vocal reminder of Assault on Precinct 13 there. The windows! Ooh, damn. It's such an iconic image, isn't it? Of Stevie Wayne. Just those eyes looking out from the lighthouse. Silent, well, not so silent sentinel. She won't shut up, will she? Hello? Look behind you. Everything's going crazy. And then you're going to get the ominous clanking of seeming chains and pointy, horrible weaponry knocking at the door. There's some weird logic here, well, lack of logic here. He says someone's playing a prank. You know, and they're not going to be happy when you find me home. Well, if someone was playing a prank, they expect you to be at home. They wouldn't be doing it otherwise, would they? Yeah. They're not going to like finding me out. They wouldn't be doing it otherwise, would they? That looks great, doesn't it? Tinged demonic red. Really, yeah. Oh. So again, that hand wielding the spiky thing, the hook will be Tommy Lee Wallace. I always want to say Tommy Lee Jones as well. Oh dear. It's great that she knows. She can't see nothing at all, but she just knows. That looks sensational. What in the living hell is out there? Oh well, Stevie. You have to do your own weather reports in future. I mean, that's you know, the show must go on, isn't it? They apparently are all the residents of well, from Port Reyes in Inverness. Sheriff. Again, the guy who just did that is one of the producers on the film. Or one of the grips. Oh, the fog's not going to let you do that, mate. The fog's got a lot of strange powers, hasn't it? Again, look, it's all very simply shot. But in that glorious 2:3:5:1 anamorphic frame, everything looks wonderful and cinematic and huge and epic. Even just that. Right, it's got to cut the town off completely. All the power's going. This was a day's shoot in another location. Apparently it didn't work as well as he wanted it to, but I think it looks fine. I mean, the fog is getting into all the machinery, and it's going to screw it all up. Boomf, lights out. Apart from the lighthouse light, of course. They're a very, very quiet group, aren't they? If this was Amity, they'd all be like, "Way!" 24 hours is like 6 weeks. Of course, it's also a little bit like the Day at the Triffids, with the horrible. I mean, it's not horrible, but it shouldn't have been in the movie. The tacked on finale, where the Triffids are actually attacking the people who were trapped in the lighthouse. It's just to beef up the movie. It wasn't part of the original script at all. There's Mrs. Cobritz, played by, what was her name? Regina Walden. Mrs. Cobritz. That is a sound stage as well. Just in the gloom outside is actually the wall of the stage. They still brought the van in. Mrs. Cobritz, didn't you watch Halloween? Don't be babysitting anyone in any vicinity of either Jamie Lee Curtis or John Carpenter. Not a good idea. So again, there's real. That's fog machine. None of the fog is done as a visual effect. They're in-camera effects, and the fog is created. It's blown, it's wafted by foggers and machines. That's dry ice there. And then they might do reverse shots or miniatures, as I said before. See, Adrienne Barbeau does a lot of acting on her own in this movie. She's literally only got one scene in the house with the little lad. Oh, he's cute though, isn't he? He'll be in jeopardy. Did you order pizza? That's a great cut, that. The hair in there. Apparently that truck would only go about 20, maybe 25 miles an hour. Couldn't go any faster than that. Oh, Mrs. Cobritz, don't do this. So now we know that 4 have died. Only 6 have got to die. It's not made clear at all, and in fact I don't think it works, that they're meant to be the descendants of the original conspirators. But how is Dan the weatherman, descended from it? You just don't get it. And they go after Stevie Wayne, and we know that Stevie Wayne is not from that area, so it just... Oh, dearie me. Oh! I guess the sound effects. Jesus. So again, that's done with the miniature composite. So a fake house and then the real fog in miniature on a miniature set, drifting around it, and then composited into the shot with the real house. Oh God. Oh, he's still calling for her. It's a thankless task, isn't it? Being a door in a horror movie. Oh. This sequence is very similar to the sequence in Dead and Buried by Dan O'Bannon, which I mentioned before, in Potter's Bluff. And they're kind of weird zombies as well in that movie. But it's all hooks and wicked pointy things, and a family in jeopardy in a scene very similar to this. Looks great. And of course, now you're going to get into the... you've got the old chestnut of the van's wheels getting stuck in the mud. And this is exactly what happens in Dead and Buried as well. Dead and Buried came after this, so... Come on! I'm afraid at a point like this, I'd be getting out the car and just legging it. Oh dear. It's shot really well. Come on! Oh, it's good that you're actually seeing, there's a few of these guys. What the hell was that then? What is that? That looked very Lovecraftian. Whatever the hell was just slightly coming into view through the broken window. Looked like one of the elder ones, the old gods. A bit of a Cthulhu. See, mission aborted, the fog's gone. Do you think? Mrs. Williams. She's like, you make yes ma'am sound like screw you. There's Deborah Hill again. See, from where she is, she can see that the fog's gone past the house. So she knows from her vantage point. Actually, you know, if you thought your kid was in jeopardy, I mean, seriously, folks, if you thought your kid was in jeopardy, you'd be in that little dinky Jeep of yours and you'd be ploughing down those cliff top roads. See, again, that's one of these miniatures where they've used miniature fog with the black velvet and then put it into the real shot of the real place of the real location. Look at that jagged glass. It looks like a shark's mouth, doesn't it? Jesus, you could have got all that away. This is what Carpenter refers to as the infamous Reel 9. The reel of film that they had to extensively re-edit and reconstruct. Here's that reverse shot, right, folks? That's reversed. That Jeep's actually pulling away. Watch. The fog is actually not coming towards us, it's going away. The wind is blowing it in the other direction. So to combat that, they filmed it in reverse. There you go, that's reverse. Ta-da! I finally got that right. See, it looks like it's coming towards us, look at that. It's actually been blown back. After filming it so many times, they realised, oh, shit, what are we going to do? Okay, we'll just do it in reverse. Ta-da! That simple little story of reverse shot is going to haunt me forever now. I'll be in bed tonight. It's a reverse shot. The wind was blowing. See? The curse is upon me. Keep your eyes on the screen, folks. Of the fog, not me. Because all hell's going to break loose in here in a minute. Because I've got a cutlass and a big spiky vintage hook sitting here. If I get any more animated, I'm going to skewer myself. And who the fuck are you? Oh yeah, we've met before, haven't we? Oh God. He's just the person you want. Can't hide any longer. Can't fight it. Just give him a bottle. I don't blame you, mate. What? It's like the scene in Zulu. And that was a priest as well. He was a drunkard. God, that must mean I must be one of the most staunchest men of God ever. I'm not. I'm surely not. See, there's the real Port Reyes lighthouse there. Look at that now. Oh. See, that's coming up the top. You've got to come down the cliff to get to that lighthouse. So she's looking back up where the steps are, and now it's coming down. I mean, it's very surreal and absurdist in many ways. You've got no sense of geography with how the ghosts move around within the fog. They just appear at wherever the hell they want, really. It can do us no good now. You're like, will you just shut up? Go and sit in one of your pews and pray to the Almighty. It's not even his fault. Although he blames himself for it. She looks amazing. Those eyes and that, she's got very striking bone structure. So whether looking sultry, sexy, wax, looking terrified, looking hard and mean like she does as Maggie in Escape from New York, or as an absolute bitch Harridan from Hell in Creepshow alongside Hal Holbrook. She's phenomenal. And going topless in Wes Craven's Swamp Thing, even better. Just slap him. I'm the one they want. Just fling him out then. Go on. So you didn't read the whole book, did you? There's Tommy Lee Jones again. Just how many arms has Tommy Lee Wallace got? And it's going to be him as well that wrenches the door off its hinges here. This is great, this. God, he was a busy boy in this movie, wasn't he? Oh, be careful with them polystyrene rocks. This looks great. The way that door comes off. How many ghosts, can wrench off steel doors like that? They so use this lighthouse well, or the lighthouse setting. The generated spiral staircase, the exterior of it, and then the outside sort of balcony. And that's Tommy Lee Wallace grabbing his own wife's hair. And of course they use the roof of the lighthouse, which of course is a mock-up. Quite easily done because it's completely swirling with fog, so get to be an absolute murder on it, don't they? Whoa. And that cross, he does a good job there of making it look really heavy, because if it's meant to be gold bullion, you wouldn't be able to carry it. But he's doing a good effort. And the lead, the Captain Blake, is played by Rob Bottin. Special effects guy Rob Bottin. He did all the special makeup effects for this movie, but plays Captain Blake because he was the only one tall enough to do it. And had the appropriate hair as well. Rob Bottin, of course, who did the effects for The Howling and The Thing. And Legend and Total Recall. Well, you got nowhere else to go, have you, hon? Apparently, when you just see the boots and the hands clawing at the roof, that's actually Deborah Hill doing those little insert shots. The noise on Blake clanking his way up. That's a latex mask with Scotch Brite on the eyes, so when you shine a light onto it, the eyes glow. Same with the gold, actually. The gold is covered in Scotch Brite, So you shine a light on it and it will glow. Blake. And Father Malone. I've just been like, it is your gold, and I'd legged it the other way. This is great, this. Carpenter does this so well. A hand and then a hook. And then what rises up behind it as well. Oh, you're like, no! So again, that'd be Deborah Hill. Oh, got her as well, but look at this. It's Wormface. Look at that. Only a brief shot, but it's enough. And you can see, the geometry of this now. And it looks sensational. You believe she's on top of that lighthouse. Whoa. It was super, super hot in there with all the lights they had to use. So that steam is pretty much realistic. Hal Holbrook was on fire. Oh. She's still fighting though, isn't she? Look. Ooh. Now, let's be honest, we're all kind of like, oh, what, really? That's all it took? Really? Carpenter loves his ensemble group of thrust together survivors. Again, it's pure Howard Hawks, people who end up under siege. Disparate characters flung together, having to act and cooperate, even though most of them probably don't get along. Isn't the music wonderful here? It's like a post-battle lament. It's a reworking of the theme of Stevie Wayne walking down towards the lighthouse. Oh, how's your shoulder, hun? God. Father Malone goes, and you broke my last bottle of whiskey, you son of a bitch. Very enigmatic and beautiful shots again. It's a shame that you don't really see many people in the town. You don't see anybody in the town, do you? No one. And but then again, they've got away with it because they're all meant to be at the centenary celebrations. Doesn't really matter. It's just that they show that main street so often. Oh, look at that. That looks just so gorgeous, that. And this, of course, is the homage to Scotty in The Thing from Another World, saying, watch the skies, keep looking, keep watching the skies. It could come again. They did talk about doing a sequel to this. I mean, Carpenter would allow anyone to make a sequel to this now. Doesn't care, does he? He allowed him to do that fucking god-awful remake of it. Jesus. Cartman has a love of EC Comics, where there's always some sort of righteous comeuppance at the end. The zombie comes back with one final kill, which is what you're going to have here. But again, as much as I love this, I also think, well, what? They haven't gone away with the gold and then thought, oh shit, he meant to kill 6. Let's go back. Because that silly priest named himself. He said, I'm the 6th conspirator. I'm Father Malone. And this is just like a little patch of fog. And all his crew are in this little patch. Again, I shouldn't be nitpicking, but you can't help it. It works great as the final sort of payoff. Uh-oh. Whoa. And that was done with trick photography there. Rob Bottin as Blake is actually about 12 foot away, but he's swinging like a cutlass. And but it's trick photography, making it look like he's a lot closer. And there you go, folks. That was, I forgot about that falling down. That was the fog that did it. And folks, I've made 1 bottle of beer last throughout that movie. Getting good, me, aren't I? Let's try and fix this. Get on there. Oh, and there's the original novelisation by Dennis Etchinson. The fuck, that's that would appear to be Dan the Weatherman getting done in a doorway to the meteorological station. John Carpenter's soul-chilling film, The Fog. Tonight the fog that rises off the California coast is different, unnatural, a writhing icy mist blanketing the small town, concealing its terrors. For tonight, 100 years later, they have risen from the dead in vengeful fury, stalking down their victims in a night of unimaginable horror. Out in the water by Spivey Point. Wonderful film, folks, wonderful film. The Fog delivers. It is scary. It is incredibly atmospheric. It looks wonderful. It makes painstakingly beautiful use of real locations. Seamless transitions from real locations to interior sets and studios. You wouldn't know. It flows perfectly. You also wouldn't know just how badly problematic that first edit was. When he come back from their honeymoon, Carpenter and a select crew sat down with Adrienne Barbeau and watched that first edit. And halfway through, Carpenter just got up and said, this isn't working. Doesn't work. And he was traumatised. What are we going to do now? I'm going to give up. I'm just going to go. I can't direct movies. He'd just done Assault Precinct 13 and Halloween, for God's sake. So we know he could direct movies. So then they spent ages, a good 4 months or something like that, just recutting, re-editing, rescoring. It might not be that long actually, because I know it was a pell-mell rush to get it right. And then, and he said to Arco Embassy, listen, I'll foot the bill myself to do reshoots and to do all this sort of stuff and get it all together. I'll do it off my own money. And Arco Embassy said they recognised, oh Christ, no, he's committed, and we like that. So they said, no, we'll foot the bill, but your integrity, and your commitment is just peerless. So we'll foot the bill. And then he would only do Escape from New York for him after that. And we know how Escape from New York turned out, don't we, folks? Bloody fucking awesome. So that was The Fog. Stevie Wayne, great character. The murders on the seagrass, wonderful. Captain Blake, you only see him briefly, but he's a powerful figure, isn't he? Especially when you know the backstory. It works because you understand the pain and the betrayal. And no, we're coming back for you bastards, But how do ghosts know when they've got little watches and, grandfather clocks and, and calendars. It's 100 years since we drowned. Come on. And how come they've all still got their limbs? They were leprous, for God's sake. And they were fish food. So, I mean, you could have had, maybe they are the sort of Lovecraftian, bizarre offspring of the mariners and the leprosy and the wraith-like curse that's upon them. And fish sort of came together and created these guys. I don't know. Just made it up. I don't know. So, folks, anyway, that was John Carpenter's The Fog. Absolutely amazing. Hope you enjoyed this. Fair bit of yakety yak there. And let's hope we get this one through the YouTube censors. YouTube. What in the living hell is out there? Cheers, y'all. A bit bubbly, that, wasn't it? Good God. I'm making my own sound effects here. So, we're building up to the likes of Escape from New York and The Thing, because they're going to be biggies, real biggies. And many, many more to come after that. But I've got to psych myself up for a bit of Pliskin and McCready. Oh, God. Anyway, there's The Fog. Folks, a happy note, shall be Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime, in this ever spooky, atmospheric, foggy in-between time, please keep it Celtic, and I'm going to see you all so long as we can see into the mist. You know, otherwise it's going to be too murky and I won't see it at all.